Okay, now to make our office, we're going to begin with the basics of the stage. In our case, we've planned to make only 2 walls and the floor so that we will be able to see in it like a screenplay or a stage. So what we are going to do is hit delete on the cube in object mode. Then we are going to press Shift A to add an object. We're going to add a plane. Another alternative to do this is up here in the commands. You can just say add, go to mesh, select plane. Okay, we're going to zoom in using our wheel mouse. We are just rolling it up, centered upon what we want to zoom in on. We are going to go to edit mode. One can also use tab to do this. And up here, you're going to see selection modes. This is vertices. That is the individual corners and dots where things come together. We have edge mode. This allows you to select a line, and face mode, which would allow you to select a whole face. In this case, it's just the whole plane. We are going to go into edge mode and select 2 of our edges on this. Then we are going to press E for extrude, and Z, see, it puts us a small colored line that it has now added. That's to let us know that we have constrained our movement. We can only move in the one direction now. If you hold Control, it will snap it to the grid, allowing it only to go in discrete measurements. I like to do this because it allows things to be repeated later. All right, so now we've got our general thing. The problem with this is that it is just a plane. Real world objects have some thickness. So we are going to go over here on our control panel on the right. You're going to go where it has a wrench. We're going to be adding modifiers. Click the Add Modifier button and select Solidify. As you can see, if I zoom in here, that has now added some thickness to each of the parts of our model. We are going to increase the thickness or decrease it to a level that you're satisfied with, that this would be a good thickness for your floor and walls. Now that we have our most basic of shapes, our floor and walls, we're going to add a little bit of extra geometry on our model. I'm going to be adding a door. One can also add windows in a very similar way. Right now, we're just going to cut the hole for where it goes. Now, what we're going to do is hover over our model and hit Control R. This will introduce a ring cut. You'll find that you can move your mouse and it'll change which parts it's going to be on. So after you find the correct face that you want it on, in order to get this to appear, I recommend hovering over the edge of the face that you want to cut. And it is cutting all the faces of this section. So then you would hit left mouse one time in order to accept the ring. At this point, you can still move your mouse up and down to move where this new geometry is going to be. So at this point, I'm picking the height for our door, and I am going to go ahead and left click again, which will set where that is. I'm going to repeat this process in the other direction 2 times in order to create one face that is going to be where our door is. At this point, we can delete this face if we would so choose. We would select face mode, select this face, and press X or delete to bring up the delete menu. We would then select face and it would give us a hole. We are not going to do that, however. I'm going to press Control Z to put that particular face, to undo and put that face back. I'm going to hold Shift and the middle mouse button to adjust my screen to where I want to see this. And I'm going to actually press I, which is stands for inset. It creates a unique extrusion that you can then roll your mouse, well, move your mouse in or out in order to determine the thickness. I'm doing this so that we will have a standard thickness around our door as a door frame. Going to press X and delete that face now. Now with this additional geometry, I am going to, still on face mode, I'm going to select each of these faces. When you hit select, if you hold Shift and left click with your mouse to select more faces. So you can select more than one thing at a time. We are then going to press E to extrude and pull that out. You see, in this case, because there is already some additional geometry, it has already constrained it to the direction perpendicular to where I was pulling it out. I'm going to decide how thick I want my door frame to be by sliding my mouse until I find a thickness I'm happy with. Okay, then I'm going to tab into object mode, and I'm going to hit Shift A, or go to the add menu at the top, mesh and cube to add a new object. I'm going to be adding a wooden floor to this, and because I wish to use another modifier, this needs to be a separate object. So after that, we're going to go into edit mode and select S or for size or scale. We're going to move our mouse in order to make our object smaller. Use our move mouse to pull it up where we can see it. We're going to scale it specifically in the Z direction to make it skinnier. We are going to scale it in the Y direction to make it wider until it is the length of the room. We are going to use our control arrow in order to lower it down to the floor. I'm actually going to move this over here and make sure that it is comparable to our existing door frame. You don't want to make it look like a tripping hazard as you walk in. Since I am satisfied with the size of this one plank, I'm going to go ahead and multiply it. In this case, I'm going to use a modifier. Once again, in the wrench section of your control panel, once again in the wrench section of your control panel, go to add modifier. You're going to be selecting the first one under generate, which is an array, and that will add additional pieces. We want the little space between these, so I'm going to add a little bit of relative offset. The more you add to this, the further apart new ones would be. We need just 1.1, and increase the count until it gets to the size I want. In this case, I pretty much lucked out in that it was very close to the edge of my thing. But If you don't have that, you can adjust your relative input, relative offset, increasing the gap between things, or you can scale, in this case on the x-axis, to make it each board just a little thicker or thinner until you are satisfied with how things line up. Okay, after we've done that, I'm going to go ahead and save. Next, we're going to add some basic materials that will help us to differentiate where each piece begins and ends.